Wow, cool. Have so many faces. Um, yeah, welcome. My name is Chelsea. I'm calling in right now from the land known as Nipmuc, Pecumtuck, Nonotuck land in Western Massachusetts, Northampton. Um, yeah, I'm a community herbalist. Happy to talk about that another time because I love talking about herbs. And also I'll share a little bit about how um, bees to me feel like great allies for an herbalist and as a Jewish person. I identify as a white Ashkenazi queer Jew, and yeah, I'm excited to share some things from my perspective, some things I've learned. So I will be sharing my screen in a moment, and I just want to name that while I don't have closed captioning for everything I'm going to say, there's not text, but if you have a question or need something repeated, please let me know, or you could ask a question in the chat. Yeah, I'll make sure to get to that. And please, if you feel like sharing your name and pronouns in the chat, it'd be fun to hear from everybody. So I'm going to share my screen. Oh, don't look at my first slide. Okay. So this is the Be Bright workshop. If you're in the wrong place, you can still stay. Yeah, I wanted to share a little bit about the Hebrew month of Kislev. I love the Hebrew calendar and the cycle of the calendar. So I'll share a little bit about that in a moment. And I also want to name that I don't know if everyone identifies here as a Jewish person, but if you are or you appreciate Judaism, I just want to name that as we learn today and talk about new things, that some feelings might arise. This might happen because for a number of reasons, just learning is kind of edgy and exciting, and you might just have some feelings about it. Also, just recognizing that some of our teachings have been intentionally or like accidentally hidden from us. And so there might be some feelings there about learning new information. So I hope it resonates, and I hope you see any feelings arise. There's some Jewish teachings around that too, that like our feelings are our ancestors, our angels coming to us and celebrating us as we study and learn together. So the first moment, well, I just want to also share here on the slide, there's this beautiful flower with a bumblebee coated in, if someone could just nod their head, can you see my mouse? Cool, I'm gonna use that as my pointer, thanks. Some little pollen legs here, just something to note. Sweet, sweet bee. Oh yeah, and we will make some candles, or at least we'll get you started. There are a lot of candles to be made for a Hanukkah menorah, so can't guarantee that we'll have time to make all of them on camera, but we will be doing that. So first I want to share this bee-related teaching, which is that in Judaism, we are taught that learning should be sweet. The only thing apparently sweeter than honey is date syrup. But I just want to name that we're encouraged to learn and be sweet. So if you had some honey accessible nearby, I know it wasn't on the original list of materials, but if you felt like taking a moment to taste some honey, or even just think about sweet honey in your mouth or something else that's sweet. In Hebrew, the word for honey is dvash. The word miel is the Ladino word. And if you are a language person and have some other fun words for honey you want to throw in the chat, feel free to add them now. Yeah, so just take a moment to have a little sweetness if you can. All right. Oh, yeah. Not essential this moment, but something to think about maybe in the next 15 minutes or so. if you're planning to make candles with us, you might want to start melting your wax soon if you're using a stovetop. I'm just going to take a pause to show a quick way to do that if you haven't melted wax before. It does take some time. So I'm going to do what I call the double boiling method. I have a little pot of water here. And let me just move my office. So yeah, I have a pot of water and I have a jar with some wax in it, broken up into a little bit smaller pieces. If you have a big hunk of wax, you could grate it a little bit to make some smaller pieces. In my pot, I threw in a couple canning jar rings on the bottom so that my jar is not on the bottom of my pot. And ideally the water inside your pot should be about the same height as your wax. This is a very small but home scale version of melting wax. And then you could start putting it on some low heat. If you have a crock pot, like a small crock pot, cute little wax melter, you could get that rolling. We could talk about it more in a little bit, or if you want to throw a question into the chat. But otherwise, yeah, maybe think about starting your wax soon. Okay. Actually, I'm going to throw mine on just to get this part melting.
And Chelsea, it looks like there's a question in the chat that's, so wait, if we're working with blocks of wax, how should we break that up?
Yeah. So if you have like a big 1 pound, I can't exactly see who's asking, but like a large pound of wax, you could use something like a cheese grater to grate the wax into smaller pieces, or you could start melting it. And if Jessica has any input, feel free to chime in.
Yeah, for the bigger blocks, you can just heat it as you would the pellets. It'll just take a little bit longer to melt, but don't turn it up to high heat because your glass could break. It's happened to me a few times, so don't overheat your glass. Just make sure it stays on low heat. And if you're using, I sometimes use a microwave to speed it up a little bit, but also be cautious about that because it could also break in the microwave, and that's happened to me as well. So I've broken a lot of glasses, so just be sure to not use super high heat.
Cool. Thanks for that tip. Yeah, microwave is an option as well. Okay. Cool. And we have some time to get their wax melting. And as Tessa said, this will be recorded, so you can, I don't know if you said that, this will be recorded so you can also dip back into the instructions later. Okay, so here we have a very simple image of a Hebrew calendar that I drew for us today, just to give some context of where we are in the Hebrew month of Kislev. So this calendar moves clockwise with the arrows. I've color-coded the, and it's interesting, as I'm sharing my screen, I can't see the chat, so I do apologize if I miss a question right now. So I've tried to coordinate the seasons, the 4 seasons. Here I'm in Massachusetts, we have 4 seasons. I don't know if it's how it works in California. Still learning about over there, but right now we're in the end of fall, or this orange section. The new year, Tishrei, started about this line on the new moon, Rosh Hashanah, the 7th month of the year. About halfway here was Sukkot into Cheshvan. Here we are in Kislev, and right about toward the end of Kislev on the 25th is when Hanukkah starts, next Thursday this year. And also moves a little bit into Tebet, or the winter months, this blue. Yeah. Shvat is we have another new year here, the new year for the trees. Adar is when we have Purim. this real quick calendar. Nisan is the new year or spring, the green for Pesach. And the Omer, counting of the Omer, lots of goodness here, and healing work in the spring, into Sivan, the arrival of the Torah at Shavuot in the middle of Sivan, into summer months, this yellow section, and back to the new year. And there's a lot that happens in all those months. But just to give you some context, we're here. We're transitioning. We're moving from the fall into winter. And there are a lot of emotions that can show up at this time of year from a herbalist's perspective, and also just, in the seasons, we are a little bit colder. We seek warmer foods, hot teas, ideally like cozy community family time when we can safely be with others during COVID, or not COVID times. You get what I mean? This is a time of really bringing it in. We spent the fall gathering our harvest and processing and making things, gathering, and now we're kind of bringing in the warmth and the light to take us through the winter. Maybe similar to what the bees are doing when we hear from Jessica. So this is the context of where we are. So I just want you to take a moment to ask yourself, what word or words do you associate with the month of Kislev? Maybe it's a brand new word for you you've never heard before. Maybe you want to, and you could put this in the chat. Maybe you can think about the calendar, which I'll just go back to for a moment. But think about a word or words to share associated with the month of Kislev. I'm sure we have a lot of people here who know a lot. I'm going to come out of my screen share just so I can read some things. Light, turning inward. Anybody else have anything to share? All right, maybe people are feeling shy. Good question, Asher. My jar of wax tippled over and got water in it. Is it okay to dump the water out and keep melting the damp wax? I think so. Jessica.
Yeah, sorry, excuse me. Yes, it should be fine. Normally the water separates from the wax anyway, so you might get some droplets on your string, but it should be fine.
Okay. So, share. Oh, did my screen not share? There we go. Hello. Sorry about that. I'm trying to get back to my list. I made a list of some words just to get us back into. Oh, can you see it? What is happening? Technical issues.
Chelsea, I think if you, right now you're screen sharing your Zoom screen, so maybe you screen share a different screen. Sometimes you have to select a different one.
Yeah, I selected my PowerPoint presentation. You can just see Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
How about now? Okay. Okay.
Yep, there we go.
Great. Okay, so words associated with the month of Kislev. And so someone said, yeah, turning inward. It is, it's totally a time of inward. I made a list of some words. Also another quick pick of some bees to get us ready. So a couple things that have come up for me while thinking about bees and its connection to Judaism and this month and this time of year is really about community, and hopefully we'll get to dive into that a little by looking with with Jessica. But bees are really well known for mutual aid, for supporting one another, working as a unit, coming together, supporting one another. I put this word trophallaxis in here, which is a practice that bees have of feeding one another. I don't know if anybody this time of year has a craving for foods or for comfort foods, or maybe sharing foods. Oil is a big part of oily foods, is a part of Hanukkah for at least my upbringing in an Ashkenazi home. There is that inward, someone mentioned, a darkness that we're moving into. There's a lot of unknowns when we move into winter, right? We question, will there be enough? Other unknowns, will it be warm enough? Will I have enough food? Yeah, and some processing, some dreaming. Kislev is known as a month of dreams. There's even in the Torah, Jacob at this time has some movement in his dreams, waking up after wrestling with God, changing his name to Israel, which means one who wrestles with the divine. So we see dream work show up this time of year with the darkness. I don't know if bees dream. I'm not an expert in that, but I do. I think that there's a time where they're slowing down and maybe thinking about what's to come in the spring. Yeah, Kislev is a time to also just generate some warmth. So I wanted to do a little movement, quick little practice, and then we'll take these thoughts and I'll pass it off to Jessica. But if it's comfortable for you to sit, or you can lie down, maybe you are lying down, and just close your eyes for a moment and let your awareness rest here in the chest, shoulders, and chest area. We'll just take a couple breaths in and out of the nostrils, in and around the heart. And we're going to do an imagery practice. So there's no actual like physical movement. It's just a visualization. And we're going to imagine our strong lungs breathing from the center of the chest out to the tips of the fingers. Like you're taking this inhale from the chest to the fingertips, and exhale from the fingertips in toward the chest, practicing this motion of breath kind of moving out and in. You don't actually have to move, I'm just moving my arms. And if you wanted to switch directions at some point too, you could try to exhale from chest to fingertips, inhaling fingertips to chest. This practice, this imagery is one, it's just a nice little lung exercise, getting our lungs nice and strong as we move into winter and into Kislev, further into Kislev, almost Tevet. And then it's also a great way to practice giving and receiving from the center of the chest or the heart. Moving inward, kind of finding your own light, moving out and sharing with others. And you can do this with the imagery with your candles later as you're burning them, kind of imagine the light moving in and out, keeping you warm, and also sending out your light to others to keep them warm. And I think of the bees doing this a lot with that trophallaxis, that like feeding one another. They only feed each other. They don't, from what I understand, they don't feed themselves. They feed each other. There's always enough for others. There's some other words here. And gathering, remembering, storytelling, light, sweet. You can release that breathing practice if you haven't already. And I do want to pass off to Jessica, and we'll come back to do a little wax dipping in a little bit. Thanks.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Chelsea. I'm Jessica, and I'm a beekeeper, and I also own a small business that makes wellness products. So like muscle bombs, tinctures, and other things. Um, I started beekeeping a few years ago. My dad was a beekeeper, and I started helping him when he got sick. And so I had just left my job, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do. So I was really just trying everything. So I started helping him then. And this was in 2018. And then he passed shortly after. So I was really grateful to have spent all that time with him, learning one of his hobbies and something that was very special to him. And so I have a really deep connection with beekeeping just through my family and through my heritage. My grandpa was also a beekeeper in Mexico, and I think that's one of the reasons my dad started beekeeping. So it's just a very emotional thing for us. And so I've grown the apiary to be about 30 hives right now. I started with about 15 this year, so I doubled the amount of hives that I have. So I'm really lucky, and I'm really grateful for the space that I have and for having this beautiful hobby, I guess. And if you have any questions, you can start putting them in the chat or just wait until after if anything comes up. If you have any candle making questions right now, just let me know if something went wrong. We can try to help you. But yeah, so I'm on my family farm right now in Merced, California. And behind me are all my bees, and then I have some scattered around the property too. I'm gonna take you all a little bit closer so you can see some of our hives here. We put them on the stand so they're off the ground, so no critters get on them. And right now, since it's winter, they're not as active, but luckily here in Merced in the Central Valley, it's warm enough for them to still go out and forage and collect nectar if there are any flowering things right now. So usually they'd not be as active as they are right now, but since it's like, I don't know if you can all see that. Since it's pretty warm still, they're able to come out of the hive and fly around. When it's too cold, they just stay inside and not hibernate because they're still pretty active, but they all kind of huddle together to create warmth. And if there's not enough food for them to forage on outside, they'll start consuming the honey that they collected throughout the whole year. So just like us, they like to stay warm during the cold months, and they're cold-blooded. So they really have to be careful to keep the inside of the hive a constant warm temperature so they don't all freeze and die. Right now, they run the risk of starving if they don't have enough honey collected, and also freezing if they don't create enough warmth among them. I'm not going to open one up right now because it's a little too cold, but inside, you can just imagine a bunch of bees huddled together, moving around, trying to create warmth. And so through that, they use a lot of energy, and so they're having to consume some more honey, trying to just keep each other warm. But here, it's going to be hard to see, but let me see if I can try to flip my camera. You can see some coming in with pollen, which is amazing because normally during this time, there's nothing flowering around here in the Central Valley. So I'm very happy to see that because that means that they're still getting food for themselves, and it's less likely that they'll starve. I'm not sure where they're going because I don't see anything on our farm that's flowering, but it could be rosemary. It could be other herbs because those are also flowering right now. So if you want to help save the bees, herbs are a great thing to plant. A lot of them are perennials, so they last more than one season. We have a lot of rosemary on our farm. We have a lot of lavender on our farm. I just started to plant marjoram, which is one of their favorite things to consume. And I once read that bees use the different nectars for different purposes. So if they have a wide range of food, they're going to be able to, they're a lot healthier. So like, just like us, we need a wide range of foods to eat. They need a wide range of nectar to eat too. So that's really interesting. An interesting fact. This one has a lot of spider webs, so I'm just cleaning it off. But yeah, any questions so far? This year I had about 4 hives die from different things. And it's always really sad for me when they die, just because I have this like deep emotional connection, and I almost feel like I'm failing my dad if I don't keep them alive. But on the other side, I'm not treating them, and I'm trying to let them thrive on their own. So I'm trying to create a space for them where they're able to collect enough nectar, collect a variety of different types of nectar, so they're healthier, and so they're able to survive on their own without me here. And so that's my ultimate goal with my apiary and my farm. Yeah, so here's some more back here on this other bench. And I think I got a question. Let me see. Do the hives smell differently? Yeah, so there's this specific strong hive smell when you first open it up. And I can't tell the difference between the different nectar that they foraged on, but you can definitely tell the difference once you've harvested the honey. So every honey is different in the smell, the taste, the texture. But yeah, when I open up the hive, there's no specific smell based on the flower. It's just this sweet honey smell that you get when you open it up. And then I think, yeah, so what does it mean when you have an orange blossom honey? Does it mean the bees are collecting pollen from orange blossoms? Yeah, so usually when you see a one variety type of honey, like orange blossom or lavender or anything else, it means that they mostly foraged on those flowers. It doesn't necessarily mean that it was the only flower they foraged on, but it was the majority that they foraged on. So yeah, if it's orange blossom, that usually means the bees were taken to an orange orchard, and that's where they got their nectar from. But they can still, they themselves decide where they forage. So a beekeeper can only do so much for them to only go to a specific type of flower. But yeah, so orange blossom usually means that they mostly foraged on orange blossom, but not exclusively. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to show you all is the inside of a dead hive, just because I can't open up one of these live ones. So I'm gonna walk over to my dead ones so you can see what it looks like with all the comb inside, but without any bees. So give me 1 minute while I walk there. But if you have any candle questions, is everything melting okay right now for everyone?
Yeah, there's a question in the chat from Miranda asking, how does the beeswax with now get harvested and processed from the hives?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'm gonna show that to you all now. let me just set this all down. I have some empty hives behind me. There are no more bees left, but it's still full of beeswax. One of them is a lot older than the other one. So this one here with 3 tiers, I want to say is like 4 or 5 years old, and it just died this year. So I was a little sad. But the one on the left or on the right here is from this year. So this one was a new hive from this year, and it also died this year. So you'll see the difference in the comb color. The newer one has a lot lighter comb, and the older one almost has like black comb. So you'll see the differences there. So I just took the lid off the box. This is what it looks like. Usually on the inside, you'll see this like wax and also propolis buildup. And so the propolis, they collect from like tree resin and flowers to create this kind of like antibacterial glue. And it's super sticky. A lot of people use it in like tinctures or in cosmetic products because it's antibacterial. And it's all made of wood. It's all kind of good. And then, so inside each of these boxes, there are 9 or 10 of these wooden frames. And usually we try to get the bees to build straight, so it's easier to inspect. So you'll see the comb pretty straight, but normally in nature, they build kind of curvy, and however they decide the best like airflow is for them. But you can see this one's pretty dark. I think normally what you see is like a lighter white or yellow type of beeswax. But in here is where they store all their honey, all their eggs, all their pollen. So it's like their universal furniture for them. Yeah, you can also see, I don't know if you can see that closely. Oh yeah, that's a good angle. But in here is their pollen, and this is their protein. So they're giving this to their eggs as their protein. And it's kind of like a, let me see if I can take it out. I can't really take it out, but it's like a powdery type of like pollen. And so what I do when I get a dead hive or when I harvest honey is I take all of this off, and it just comes off super easily like that. And I just break it off, and then I put all of this stuff into a canvas bag, or I wrap it up in like a cheesecloth. So all the debris, when I start melting it, stays in the cheesecloth or the canvas bag, and then all of the beeswax just melts out into the water, and then I can, I'll wait for it to harden, and then I'll just pop off the wax. And I'll show a video so you can kind of visualize what I mean. But yeah, so this is pretty interesting. So once one dies, I try to figure out why it dies. And so that's why I have these out here. I haven't harvested it yet because I want to know why they died, so I don't do it again. And then this one here is a newer one. And this one, they built a little bit more natural. They didn't build very straight. Oh, sorry. I don't know if you can see very much in here. But the wax in here is very tiered and not very straight. So it's hard for me to try to take them out, but let me see if I can. Can you all hear me okay? I'm outside, so I'm not sure if it's all right.
Yeah, you sound good, Jessica.
It's gonna be a little hard to take these out, but I'm gonna try. All the bees followed me here. I'm not able to take it out, but you can kind of see in here that they didn't build very straight. So right now I'm not able to take them out because they kind of built diagonally across the box. Yeah, this comb is very light, very different. Oh, there we go. So you can see here, is that a little bit easier to see? Almost the entire like colony here, the old wax. But you can see that this one is much lighter. The other one was pretty much black. And then this one here has an interesting design too. But yeah, the wax is much lighter. It's a lot newer. Yeah, any questions so far? Let me see. What are the different factors that cause a hive to collapse? So in our case, it's usually mites that cause them to die. So there are these little bugs that attach onto the bees, and they're basically parasites, and they feed off the larvae and the bees. And so when they're inside of a like larvae cell that's just developing, these mites will start to eat the bee. And so when it like comes out, or when the bee is born, it comes out deformed, or the wings don't work, just because they weren't able to develop fully. And so eventually that can cause a colony to collapse and die. Another factor is not enough food in the area. We live in a very like agricultural area, and you would think there would be a lot of flowers, but most of the year they're not growing anything around here. So it's almost like a desert. So there's also that risk. And also if we get a hive too late in the season, so like if we get a new swarm or a new set of bees in the late summer, they might not have enough time to build up their hive. And so in that case, I usually combine them, but sometimes I don't have enough time and they just die. But yeah, let's see. Am I running over time? Sorry, I don't want to take up too much of the candle making time.
Good, you have 5 more minutes probably, it's great.
Okay. And I think some questions are for urban Adamah. And then what causes them to not build straight? So naturally they want to build in a way that helps with their airflow. So and so it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is if you want to be checking on your hives pretty frequently, because then, like you saw what I just did, I kind of destroyed that entire like hive in there. So normally what you do when you want them to build straight is you add a guide, or you check on them frequently, and then correct the comb if it's not being built straight. Yeah, any other questions? If not, I can hand it over to Chelsea again. Thank you.
Thanks. Oh, that's so fun. I want to go hang out in an apiary. I had a little technical difficulty and my wax is not totally melted. However, I'm happy to get us started and would love to hear more bee conversations as we make candles. So like keep asking your questions to Jessica. And I think Jessica's also going to show us a video maybe about making the beeswax or processing it so we have it in this form. Did anyone get their wax from Happy Organics? Woohoo! Cool.
Oh yeah, thank you. I wanted to say thank you to everyone who got wax from me. I really appreciate it. It means a lot.
So sweet. Cool. Okay, so yeah, I'll get us started. First, yeah, is everyone making candles with us? Just so I can kind of gauge who, maybe raise a finger or two. Cool. Is this anyone's first time? 1, 2, oh, cool. So, Shachianu moment, if you do that. If that's not familiar to this, a blessing to say, all right, I like to say when I'm doing something for the first time, to just like honor first new experience. Or like, you know, it could be like your first time in this new place. If like you made candles when you were a kid, but now you're making it as an adult. First time in 5781, you know, no shortage of Shachianu moments, things to celebrate. So I'll just share a little bit about my setup and ways that I, to help like reduce some cleanup, things that might be interesting to you. I have a piece of parchment paper underneath my work area. You could also just use I don't know, foil if you have aluminum foil around. I don't know if I put that in the original notes. Places for wax to drip. So I have my hot double boiler wax situation. I have wax in a glass jar inside of a pot of water. I have here Wick. I like to build my candles 2 at a time, but you'll play with it and see what feels good to you. So that means this could be a really long candle, or I like to hold it in the middle so I can dip 2 at a time. So they look like this. That makes sense. And then you can cut this. Cool. So yeah, I'll share my really non-professional home technique, and then we'll kind of share as we go and see how everybody's doing. First time making drip candles, although I've poured candles. Could you recommend which wick size? Oh, 3 and a 1. I don't know actually what size this is. I got these from Jessica. Did you hear that question?
I don't, let me see. It's written on the package. 1 second.
Ash, I don't know if you're able to share a screen or if this is helpful to you. It's next to my finger.
So this is what's written on, I don't know if you can see that. It says 8 ounce.
Looks like
and
number
then
1.
number 1/0. I don't know if that's.
Great.
Yeah.
1/0 spool.
Yeah.
Cool. Other thing, if you have a Hanukkah menorah nearby, you might want it just to like test size. That's sort of how I just determined how thick to make mine. Also, I just learned today that menorah is a Ladino word. I did not know that. Thought it was Hebrew. Just a fun fact. Great. What's that? Oh, thanks, Ben. Okay, so my housemate is here also making candles. I'm gonna demo, oh, maybe I'll come a little closer. Let's just get real close. So it is hot. I'm gonna, to start, this is my super good technique. I'm gonna dip a little bit in, just on the end to make kind of a little bit heavier on the end of my wicks. Oh, one other thing I know I totally did not put in our materials, a glass of water is nice to have around. I'm dipping just the very tips of my wicks, and I'm gonna, after I dip once, I dip in the water just to build up a little bit on the ends. Some people I've seen actually tie like a little nut or bolt or penny, a weight on the bottom to keep their candles long. I also use my fingers a lot. And I don't have the thickest wax because mine didn't melt all the way. But essentially, you get your wick down into the wax, dip. As you raise it up, then dip in the water. You have to use both hands, or you could just do 1 at a time. I also like to straighten it out if it's not staying down, so. Please let me know if there's something else I could show you a little closer, but yeah, it's pretty slow process, but the cold water is cooling down the wax a little bit quicker so that I can add a fresh layer of wax. And then it'll just keep building up Can you see it's getting a little thicker? I know I said I was going to do the 2, but I'm in a smaller container, so I'm doing 1 at a time. And as Jessica said, a little water in the wax is okay because it will separate. And then I got this little boo-boo on it, a little extra wax from the side. Luckily, I can just pull it off. And while it's warm, you can reshape it a tiny bit. I think I can reshape it a little bit. Not necessarily selling these on Etsy, you know, homegrown. Wax up and dip. Does anybody want to share their process so far? Love to see some wax dipping. As you go, you find your wax might get lower in the original jar, so hopefully you have some more pieces nearby you can add. I have some pre-cut pieces here on the side. I'm just adding into my jar to raise the height, because I only can dip as high as my height of the wax. Well, anybody want to share their picture of, oh, I see some kitchens. Fun. I have a candle question for anyone who's made candles. I've seen cool candles with like things stuck to them, like a leaf or a twig. Has anyone ever done that? Or added some decoration? Oh, does it make a difference if you don't use the stand things? I'm not sure what that means, Ari and Quinn. You can also unmute if you want, if it's easier. Oh, does it make a difference if you don't use, oh, I see, the rings. I have,
We're having some difficulty getting our jars to balance on them in the water.
yeah.
We're doing it this side up, right?
The top of the jar.
Exactly.
Like,
as opposed to flipping it upside down and having it like this.
I think either. So I usually, you can't see the inside of mine, but I have 2 next to each other. I don't know if it makes a difference. It might not. I just was trying to keep the bottom of the wax directly on the heat. I don't know if anyone has input about that.
Because we've just
Yeah,
where our jar has fallen over, so we're trying to like prevent that.
Oh no, yeah, that's not good.
I think you can go without them as long as the heat isn't too high, because I think the risk of not using them is the flame directly hitting the glass, and you just don't want it to break. So, I mean, I've done it without like putting something under it, but I always do very low heat, and it just might take you longer to melt.
Okay.
Another thing I've done is I've used like a glass measuring jar with an arm so that it hangs on the side of the pot. Just that. And if anyone's looking at other options for, then it won't touch the bottom of your pot. Cool, it looks like the Gross family is busy over the stove. Cool. So sweet.
I can show the video if you'd like.
Awesome. Yeah, I want to see how to make the wax.
Let me know if you can hear the audio when I'm playing the video. If not, I'll just kind of talk over it.
Did you see it?
audio isn't working so well.
Sorry, was that my audio?
I think so. I don't see anyone else unmuted.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm gonna play it through my phone and then play the video, share the video.
Okay.
This will be easier. So I'm gonna have to do this just because my computer is a little bit slow. But I started TikTok recently, and I've just been making educational videos about what I do and the bees. And so this was one of the really popular ones because you can see how I go from the wax in the box to wax to make candles. So I take all of this wax with debris in it, filter it down, and then get clean wax at the end. And so let me refresh that. Not. Do an autopsy to figure out what. Oh, sorry, it's the audio again. Technical difficulties. Then I start cleaning out all the comb so I can reuse the box for another beehive, and so I can use the wax for the products that I make. Just like honey, the wax inside a hive can vary in color and smell based on the flowers the bees visited and also the age of the comb. The first thing I do is boil the wax with a bunch of water so it's easy to wash out the debris that's inside the comb and all the bugs that are there too. After I've dumped out the dirty water, I filter it again in a canvas tote bag, and I place that in a bunch of water again. And this way the debris stays inside the canvas tote and all the wax just melts out of the bag. I'm using a spoon to squeeze out the wax a little bit faster. I then wait for the wax to cool in the water. This takes a few hours. I can then easily remove the wax and start using it for my candles. This is how I'm. So hopefully that was a little bit more informational. Yeah, so I just take out all the wax from the boxes and filter it down. And that's what some of you have in your candle making, the ones that got from me.
That's awesome. I just wanted to share, I finished my first two and I'm just hanging them here. I mentioned maybe grabbing a hanger or something in the notes. I'm just using right now this Hanukkah just to let them cool down. And you can decide at any time when they're done. As big as you want them or as skinny as you want them. Very cool, Jessica. Thanks for that visual. It's awesome. Also, maybe I need TikTok. This looks fun.
Yeah, I was hesitant at first, and yeah, it's just fun making videos. I don't know.
There's a lot of really cool content out there and a lot of creative folks like giving people insights into their process, which I've really appreciated.
Thanks. Cool. I know I'm going to continue making candles, and I'll be here if people want to make them for a while together. Or if anyone else has any other questions, let me know before you head out. I know we're just about at that. I was gonna say 3 o'clock, but where are you guys? Noon?
Thank you so much, Chelsea and Jessica and everyone for being here. I feel like I really learned a lot about bees and wax and the whole process behind it, and definitely think differently about honey and wax. And I'm going to end the recording now, so feel free to unmute yourself